Number 10, the Farmall 560. International Harvester Company, introduced 1958, Rock Island, Illinois. At the turn of the 1960s, American farming was completing a transformation that had been building for decades. Horses were no longer part of daily fieldwork, and tractors were no longer occasional helpers. Farms now depended entirely on machines to carry the full weight of planting, harvesting, and transport. The Farmall 560 entered this moment when replacement was no longer partial, but complete. The 560 was intended to be a full-time working tractor for serious row crop farms. It was built to handle heavier implements, longer days, and more responsibility than earlier generations could manage. This was not a secondary machine, it was designed to take the place once held by teams of horses in smaller tractors, and to do so every day of the season. On real farms, the Farmall 560 plowed in disc large fields, pulled planters and cultivators through long spring days, and powered hay equipment through summer heat. It hauled loaded grain wagons during harvest and stayed active well into late fall. These were demanding, repetitive tasks that formed the backbone of farm life, and the 560 was trusted to carry them without pause. From the operator's seat, the tractor felt solid and deliberate. The engine sound was steady and purposeful, settling into a strong rhythm under load. As it pulled through the soil, the 560 moved forward with a firm, grounded pace that matched the seriousness of the work. Nothing felt rushed, and nothing felt uncertain. Farmers learned to rely on the 560 because it was there when the work could not wait. Long days in the field required a tractor that would hold together hour after hour, season after season. Over time, it became familiar in the deepest sense, not as a machine to admire, but as one to depend on. The Farmall 560 is remembered because it represents a moment of completion in American agriculture. It stands among the tractors of the 1960s that fully replaced horses on farms, carrying not just more power, but more trust. Taken together, these machines earned their place through years of real work, and that is why they remain the best American tractors of their time. Number 9, the John Deere 3010. John Deere, introduced 1961, Waterloo, Iowa. At the start of the 1960s, American farms were standing at the edge of a major transition. Horsepower had already faded, but many tractors still reflected older designs that limited comfort and flexibility. Farmers were asking for machines that worked longer days with less fatigue and greater consistency. The John Deere 3010 arrived at that moment, marking a clear step toward a more modern way of farming. The 3010 was intended to be a versatile main tractor for farms adjusting to changing expectations. It was designed to handle a wide range of tasks while introducing farmers to a new level of operator comfort and control. For many operations, it became the bridge between older, familiar machines and the tractors that would soon define the decade. In everyday use, the 3010 plowed in cultivated fields, pulled planters with steady accuracy, and ran hay equipment throughout the summer. It hauled wagons during harvest, handled loader work, and stayed busy across seasons. These were routine jobs, done repeatedly, where reliability mattered more than raw strength. From the seat, the tractor felt noticeably smoother than what many farmers were used to. The engine sound was even and refined, settling into a calm tone that reduced strain during long hours. As it pulled, the tractor moved with a steady, balanced rhythm that encouraged careful, consistent work rather than hurried passes. Farmers trusted the 3010 because it made long days easier, it responded predictably, worked without unnecessary vibration or noise, and stayed dependable across varied tasks. Over time, it became familiar in a new way, not just as a tool, but as a machine that respected the operator's time and effort. The John Deere 3010 is remembered as a tractor that quietly introduced change. It helped farmers adjust to a new standard of comfort and versatility, preparing the ground for what would follow. The transition leads directly to the next tractor in the countdown, one shaped by hard lessons and lasting expectations from the decade before. Number 8, the Minneapolis-Moline G1000. Minneapolis-Moline Company, introduced 1965, Minneapolis, Minnesota. By the mid-1960s, some American farms had moved beyond gradual change and into a period of bold expansion. Fields were larger, implements were heavier, and the margin for downtime was shrinking. The Minneapolis-Moline G1000 entered this moment as a tractor built for farms that were no longer experimenting with growth, but fully committed to it. The G1000 was intended to serve as a high-capacity field tractor for operations that demanded sustained pulling power. It was designed to handle the most demanding tillage and heavy drawbar work, fitting into farms where long days and wide fields were becoming the norm. This was a tractor meant to stay in the field and keep moving. On real farms, the G1000 pulled large plows through heavy soil, worked deep discs, and handled primary tillage that set the foundation for the entire season. It hauled heavy wagons at harvest and stayed hooked to big implements that required both strength and stability. These were not supporting tasks, but core jobs that everything else depended on. From the operator's seat, the tractor felt forceful and steady. The engine sound was strong and deliberate, rising under load but never sounding hurried. As it worked across the field, the G1000 maintained a firm, even pace, creating a rhythm that matched long hours of uninterrupted work. The pull felt confident, almost reassuring, as the tractor leaned into the load. Farmers trusted the G1000 because it delivered when expectations were high. It handled difficult conditions, stayed consistent through long days, and earned respect through performance rather than claims. Over time, it became known as a tractor that could be relied on when the work was at its heaviest. The Minneapolis-Moline G1000 is remembered as a machine built for a decisive era in American farming. It reflected a willingness to move forward without hesitation, and that sense of progression carries naturally toward the next tractor in the countdown, one that balanced similar responsibility with everyday practicality. Number 7, the Case 930. J.I. Case Company, introduced 1960, Racine, Wisconsin. As the 1960s unfolded, American farms were pushing further into larger acreages and heavier fieldwork. Equipment was growing, and the pace of farming demanded tractors that could stay in the field longer without hesitation. The Case 930 arrived at a time when farmers needed strength they could rely on, not occasionally, but every working day of the season. The 930 was intended to serve as a primary power tractor for farms handling demanding tillage and heavy pulling. It was built to take on the kind of work that defined the backbone of crop production, while still remaining usable for daily operations. For many farms, it became the tractor chosen when the hardest job needed to be done right. In real farm use, the Case 930 pulled plows through tough soil, worked heavy discs, and handled deep tillage that smaller tractors could not manage comfortably. It hauled loaded grain wagons during harvest, pulled large implements across wide fields, and stayed busy long after lighter chores were finished. These were tasks that tested endurance, not just capability. From the seat, the tractor felt powerful but controlled. The engine carried a deep, steady sound that signaled strength without strain. As it pulled, the 930 moved forward with a deliberate, confident pace, settling into a rhythm that matched long hours in the field. The feel was solid, reassuring, and built for sustained effort. Farmers trusted the Case 930 because it did not shy away from hard work. It showed up day after day, handled heavy loads without complaint, and stayed consistent through long seasons. That dependability made it familiar. A tractor operators relied on when time and conditions left little room for uncertainty. The Case 930 is remembered as a machine that carried serious responsibility during a decade of growth. It helped farms manage heavier work with confidence, and that steady strength leads naturally to the next tractor in the countdown, one that reflected a similar commitment to power, reliability, and long-term service. Number 6, the Oliver 1650. Oliver Farm Equipment Company, introduced 1964, Charles City, Iowa. By the mid-1960s, American farms were settling into a new normal. Equipment was larger, workloads were heavier, and farmers expected their tractors to handle sustained fieldwork without constant adjustment or concern. The Oliver 1650 arrived during this period as a machine built for steady responsibility rather than short-term performance. The 1650 was intended to serve as a main working tractor for farms that needed dependable power across a wide range of tasks. It was designed to manage heavy field operations while still remaining practical for daily use. For many operators, it became the tractor that stayed hitched the longest during the season. In everyday farm work, the Oliver 1650 plowed and disked fields, pulled planters with steady control, and powered hay balers through long, hot days. It hauled grain wagons at harvest and handled tillage work after the crop was off. These were jobs that demanded consistency, not occasional strength. From the operator's seat, the tractor felt planted and sure-footed. The engine carried a deep, steady sound that changed little as the load increased. As it pulled through the soil, the 1650 settled into a calm, unhurried rhythm that made long hours feel predictable. The tractor worked at a pace that encouraged confidence rather than urgency. Farmers trusted the Oliver 1650 because it behaved the same way every day. It started when asked, pulled without hesitation, and stayed composed under pressure. Over time, it became familiar, a tractor that earned confidence not through claims, but through repetition and reliability. The Oliver 1650 is remembered as a machine that carried its share of responsibility during a demanding decade. It fit naturally into farms that valued steady progress and dependable work, and that quiet strength leads smoothly toward the next tractor in the countdown, one built for even heavier expectations on growing American farms. Number 5, the Allis-Chalmers D17. Allis-Chalmers Manufacturing Company, introduced 1957, West Allis, Wisconsin. As American farming moved deeper into the 1960s, many operations were working at a scale that demanded more capability without sacrificing familiarity. Farms were expanding slowly, not overnight, and farmers needed tractors that could grow with them. The Allis-Chalmers D17 stood firmly in that moment, offering strength and flexibility while remaining grounded in everyday use. The D17 was intended to serve as a primary tractor for mixed and row crop farms. It was designed to handle heavier fieldwork than earlier models, while still remaining useful for daily chores. For farmers who needed one tractor to do most of the work, the D17 fit naturally into the flow of the season. On real farms, the D17 plowed and disked fields, pulled planters and cultivators with confidence, and powered hay equipment through long summer days. It hauled wagons during harvest, ran forage equipment, and stayed useful well beyond the main field season. These were not occasional jobs, but the steady responsibilities that defined farm life. From the seat, the tractor felt solid and purposeful. The engine had a strong, even sound, settling into a steady pull under load. As it worked through the field, the D17 maintained a comfortable rhythm, allowing the operator to focus on straight rows and consistent depth. The pace felt deliberate, built for endurance rather than speed. Farmers trusted the D17 because it held up under pressure. It worked long days without complaint and responded the same way hour after hour. Over time, it became a familiar presence on the farm, valued not for flash, but for its willingness to keep going when the work demanded it. The Allis-Chalmers D17 is remembered as a tractor that quietly carried farms through a period of transition. It offered more capability without abandoning the dependable feel farmers relied on, setting the stage for the next tractor in the countdown, one that reflected a similar balance of progress and trust. Number 4, the Massey Ferguson 165. Massey Ferguson Limited, introduced 1964, Coventry, England. As the 1960s moved forward, many American farms remained family-run operations that depended on one tractor to handle nearly every task. Efficiency mattered, but so did simplicity and reliability. The Massey Ferguson 165 entered this landscape as a practical answer to farms that needed steady performance without complication. The 165 was intended to be a dependable everyday tractor for small to mid-sized farms. It was built to handle fieldwork, haymaking, and general chores, fitting naturally into operations where one machine often carried the majority of responsibility. Its role was not to replace multiple tractors, but to reduce the need for them. On working farms, the Massey Ferguson 165 plowed and cultivated row crops, ran mowers and balers during hay season, and pulled wagons loaded with grain or feed. It handled planting, light tillage, and yard work with equal confidence. These were tasks done repeatedly, season after season, with little tolerance for downtime. From the seat, the tractor felt balanced and calm. The engine sound was smooth and steady, encouraging an even pace across the field. As it pulled, the tractor maintained a consistent rhythm that made long hours less tiring. Nothing felt rushed, and nothing felt strained. Farmers trusted the 165 because it proved itself through routine. It started reliably, worked predictably, and responded the same way at the end of the day as it did at the beginning. That consistency allowed farmers to focus on their work rather than the machine, a quality that earned quiet loyalty over time. The Massey Ferguson 165 is remembered as a tractor that fit naturally into the rhythm of everyday farming. It supported families who needed dependable help rather than excess power. and its steady presence leads naturally to the next tractor, one that served a similar role for farms seeking long-term reliability during a changing decade. Number 3, the Ford 5000. Ford Motor Company, introduced 1965, Basildon, England and Antwerp, Belgium. By the mid-1960s, many American farms were asking more from fewer machines, labor was tightening, acreage was expanding, and the daily workload demanded a tractor that could be counted on without hesitation. The Ford 5000 arrived during this shift, offering farmers a dependable partner built for long hours and steady responsibility rather than short bursts of power. The 5000 was intended to be a true utility workhorse for mixed and row crop farms. It was designed to handle both fieldwork and everyday chores, fitting easily into operations that needed one tractor to do nearly everything. Its size and balance made it practical for daily use, not just seasonal work. On real farms, the Ford 5000 plowed in disked fields in the spring, pulled planters with consistent spacing, and ran hay mowers and balers through long summer days. It hauled wagons during harvest, fed livestock in the winter, and handled loader work around the yard. These were steady, necessary tasks that could not be delayed. From the seat, the tractor felt composed and predictable. The engine sound was smooth and even, with a steady pull that encouraged a comfortable working pace. Under load, it stayed planted, allowing the operator to focus on the job rather than the machine. The rhythm it set made long days feel manageable rather than exhausting. Farmers trusted the Ford 5000 because it showed up the same way every day. It started reliably, worked without complaint, and asked for little beyond routine care. Over time, it became familiar, the kind of tractor a farmer expected to still be running when the rest of the day's work depended on it. The Ford 5000 earned its reputation through years of consistent service on American farms. It represented a period when tractors were expected to replace not just animal power, but uncertainty itself. That quiet confidence carries forward to the next tractor, one that filled a similar role for farms seeking balance, reliability, and long-term trust. Number 2, the Farmall 706. International Harvester Company, introduced 1963, Rock Island, Illinois. As the 1960s progressed, many American farms were reaching a point where versatility mattered as much as raw strength. Operations were becoming more specialized, yet most still depended on one tractor to handle a wide range of jobs. The Farmall 706 emerged during this period as a bridge between traditional row crop farming and the more demanding workloads of a modernizing era. The 706 was intended to serve as a reliable all-purpose tractor for full-time farm work. It was built to manage row crop cultivation, heavy tillage, and power-hungry implements, while still remaining practical for daily chores. For farmers who needed one machine to carry responsibility across the season, the 706 fit naturally into the routine. On real farms, the Farmall 706 plowed fields in the spring, pulled planters and cultivators through long days, powered hay balers in the heat of summer, and hauled loaded wagons during harvest. It handled silage work, disked stubble after harvest, and stayed useful well into the colder months. These were not occasional tasks, but the steady jobs that kept farms moving forward. From the operator's seat, the 706 felt firm and confident. The engine had a strong, even tone, rising slightly under load but never sounding uncertain. As it pulled through the soil, the tractor settled into a steady rhythm that made long hours manageable. The feel was deliberate, giving farmers time to work carefully without feeling rushed. Farmers came to trust the 706 because it held up under repetition. Day after day, it responded the same way, starting reliably and pulling consistently. During long seasons when breakdowns could cost valuable time, that dependability mattered more than anything else. The tractor became familiar, not flashy, but dependable in the way farmers valued most. The Farmall 706 is remembered as a tractor that carried farms through a demanding decade. It helped operators move confidently into larger fields and heavier equipment, while still honoring the steady work habits built over generations. That quiet balance of progress and reliability naturally leads to the next tractor in the countdown, one that carried similar expectations on farms across the country. Number 1, the John Deere 4020. John Deere, introduced 1963, Waterloo, Iowa. By the early 1960s, American farming had entered a period of quiet but decisive change. Farms were consolidating, field sizes were growing, and the workday was no longer measured by daylight alone. Farmers needed a tractor that could do nearly everything, day after day, without drama. The John Deere 4020 arrived at a moment when reliability was no longer a preference, but a requirement. The 4020 was intended to be a true main tractor for mid-size and growing operations. It was built to handle primary tillage, planting, harvesting support, and transport, without forcing farmers to switch machines as the season changed. It fit naturally into farms that relied on one dependable tractor to carry the bulk of the workload from early spring through late fall. In everyday use, the 4020 plowed heavy ground, pulled planters with steady precision, ran hay equipment without hesitation, and hauled loaded wagons from field to barn. It worked long hours on grain drills, balers, and cultivators, often without being shut down until the day was finished. Farmers trusted it to show up for the hardest jobs, not just the easy ones. From the seat, the tractor felt solid and balanced. The engine sound was deep and steady, never rushed, never strained. Under load, it pulled with a smooth confidence that let the operator settle into a rhythm, one pass after another. The pace was calm and predictable, matching the steady tempo of experienced farm work. Over time, farmers came to rely on the 4020 in ways that went beyond numbers. It started when it was needed, held its footing in difficult conditions, and stayed consistent through long days and long seasons. Many farms built their schedules around it, knowing it would be ready when the work could not wait. The John Deere 4020 is still remembered because it earned trust the old-fashioned way. Through years of daily work, it represented a point when tractors fully replaced horses as the dependable backbone of American farms, not just adding power, but adding certainty. In doing so, it stands as a clear example of why the tractors of the 1960s remain some of the best American farming ever knew.